One of the biggest projects in the works for NASA is sending the next crew of astronauts to the moon in 2024. Until that happens, though, NASA is working to better understand our nearest neighbor. This year, they'll be sending up small robotic moon landers.
To do that, they're seeking help from private companies. One's Astrobotic, and the CEO was the guest on a Space Curious podcast. And podcast host and News 6 digital journalist Emily Speck is here this morning. And Emily, what is the moon lander Astrobotic launching?
Right, so the Peregrine lander, which is made by Astrobotic, it's actually going to launch on a ULA rocket here from Florida. So that's pretty cool, right? But Peregrine is carrying a lot. So it's got stuff from NASA. It's got stuff from other countries. It's got a small payload from a Japanese soda company. It has little bits of items that people can actually send up, like mementos. So there's a lot of things going up on Peregrine.
And so what does this mission kind of mean for Astrobotic? I mean, you talked to the CEO. I mean, what was their reaction to all this?
So John Thornton, the CEO of Astrobotic, he kind of told me about the legacy of the company. They were founded in 2007, so still relatively young. They were actually founded to win the Google Lunar X Prize, it's a little tongue twister, for a $20 million prize, who could have been the first private company to land on the moon. Well, no one won that prize, but they continued on and they realized that bringing stuff to the moon like payloads and private items was kind of a big ticket deal.
And Emily, with this partnership, with NASA, what will Astrobotic be getting out of it?
So Astrobotic gets a lot of funding. That's kind of what they get out of it. They also get the legacy of carrying a mission for NASA. So NASA, I think it has about 12 payloads that are going on this. So they got around $80 million for this initial launch. And they're also launching another mission for NASA. That's the Griffin. That's going to launch next year. And that's a bigger one. And it's going to bring a Viper rover to the moon. So with these NASA contracts, it really gives them the wiggle room to continue to grow and expand as a young private space company.
Yeah, and it seems like the private with government funding kind of working hand in hand is kind of pushing things and really propelling things forward a lot. I mean, that's what it seems like.
Yes, absolutely. So this is not the Apollo program. We're in the Artemis generation now. So NASA is teaming up with these private commercial companies, and it's just such a booming industry. There are more private space companies popping up every single day. So it's fascinating to watch that grow. But yeah, NASA is teaming up with private companies. So it's no longer that NASA owns this lander or they're going to even own the human moon lander. That's even contracted with commercial companies as well.
And what about the other robots Astrobotics builds?
They do a lot of things. It's really cool. They make things that crawl and rove and do all kinds of stuff. This particular episode, we focused on Peregrine, which is a lander, so it's not going to be moving around. But they actually make these tiny rovers, which are really cool. And they also make small, kind of spider-like creatures. And then they have, essentially, they're providing the power and the source of fuel for a lot of other missions. So it just depends on the format, but they do a lot of really neat things.
Yeah, and they're what, a Pittsburgh company. So I mean,
yes.
They're the Northerners don't really get into all the, you have California, you have Texas, you have Florida, but this is nice, little representation up there.
It is kind of fun, and John Thornton talked about that. They're like the ambassadors of Pennsylvania to space, and I think that's so exciting that it used to be, like you said, Florida or Texas would be considered a space state or a space town, but that's no longer the case. These companies can really be anywhere.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much. Of course, looking forward to another great podcast.
Thanks.
Well, the newest episode is live right now, by the way, so all you got to do is just head on over to clickorlando.com/space. Now, episodes come out every Wednesday. Emily, you obviously know this information. You can also download podcasts from wherever you get your podcasts or go to clickorlando.com/podcast. And by the way, you can also submit space questions to Emily at spacecurious.show, and that way, she can start getting those answers ready. She has a lot of hookups, a lot of connections.
Yeah, that was an interesting partnership to talk about right there. So.